Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott. I'm joined once again by my friend Lucas, and we are here to talk pro wrestling, but specifically one of the most exciting PLEs of the year. I'm sure he'll agree, but I'm sure many of you watching right now or on demand will agree as well. The Money in the Bank has certainly made its way into the top 5 PLEs, and we're going to be jumping into, speaking of five very interesting matches to predict in just a moment.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, so once again, it is time to talk Money in the Bank. We've already touched on quite briefly, actually, in a stream a little while ago about this interesting artwork, and since then, they've come out with even more kind of cool artwork with the kind of briefcase being used in a kind of heist type scenario. Last year they played up to it when it was in London, of course, a James Bond kind of feel to it. This year it's in Toronto. Not really known for international spies, but still have done a good job there with the promo as well. But as I mentioned, Lucas, this is one of the big PLEs we know these days. What are your general thoughts as we are kind of just a few days away from it now?
Yeah, it's always quite an interesting time, isn't it, Money in the Bank? Seeing what they do. And obviously the decisions that they've made usually impact things like major scale, as we've seen with the most recent cash-in being at Mania, obviously with Damian Priest. But yeah, no, it's always quite fun. Like, it's interesting though, because there's a lot to unpack, and we spoke about it, didn't we, on our stream for the last pay-per-view, when we spoke about, obviously, you've got the Gunther situation and Nia Jax situation for the world titles on their brands. And now we're adding in Money in the Bank to that mix, alongside, obviously, what's been a very, very hot feud between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. A feud which it's all been built up without one of the people being cleared to wrestle, which is quite phenomenal. But yeah, no, I think it's always a fun time. And obviously we're delving into, it seems we have the 5 matches at the moment. Kind of history dictates that especially recently, there probably won't be many more to that. I don't think so. They might slip one more in, but I heavily doubt it. But we do obviously have the meet and grade of the day's episode, obviously, which we'll be talking about in Money in the Bank ladder matches. Then obviously we do have an interesting situation going on with the World Heavyweight Championship on the Raw side of things. We've got all that to come, as well as the IC Championship and an epic 6-man tag team contest.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot going on at the moment. I mean, I think since we last spoke, obviously we did our, like you say, our Clash at the Castle coverage. If anyone's still interested to know what we thought of that show, feel free to go back and watch it. We also covered the Raw where the White Six showed up, Drew pretended to leave, and Seth returned as well. So there's been a lot going on even since that stream, Lucas. And I've got to say, I'm still not committed to watching 3 hours of Raw and 2 hours of SmackDown, but boy, am I enjoying the condensed versions on YouTube. Because the shows at the moment are starting to feel, again, I'm not going to say must watch because I ain't dedicating that much time to it, but there's a lot going on at the moment. So many storylines are just really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think Triple H, he is actively trying his best to feature more wrestlers on the television. And that's interesting, but it seems that he's going out his way to feature a hell of a lot less on the pay-per-views. So it's interesting because, there's people who, like, obviously the whole tag team situation with Judgment Day just reclaiming the tag belts on Raw just gone. It's just like, what did Awesome Truth even do for the entirety of their run, other than their Mania moment?
It was that one,
3 months into a championship reign, which, like, surely this would be one where they should have just bounced it back onto Judgment Day a bit quicker, but maybe they would want to. But it is just very odd that we don't see a lot of people.
I guess it kind of meant a little bit more when they did get it back. I was going to say let's move straight into Judgment Day by talking about the world title, but of course that does kind of factor into the Money in the Bank matches as well. So let's maybe stay away from those matches for just now, and instead let's talk about another title match, but one that I think, I don't know, I was going to say it's a little clearer to me in my head, but that's only because of how they've been presenting one of these people at the moment, but I could be wrong. We've got Sami Zayn, the Intercontinental Champion, defending against Bron Breakker. And I think the way they've kind of pushed Bron on the top kind of level lately on Raw has been really cool to see. We saw that incredible moment a few weeks ago where he span around well, he's done it since as well, but that first one that he did was incredible, where he runs around the ring. A lot of kind of chaos around the ring lately. We saw the same thing with Cody Rhodes as well, and RKO and all those Randy and KO, I should say, beating up security and all that as well. There's been it does feel somewhat attitude era like. But before we jump into those kind of comparisons, let's jump into this match a little bit more in detail. I'm really looking forward to this because I do think it should be, and it probably will be, the crowning moment of Bron Breakker. We talked last month about, Gable potentially taking the title off of Sami. And I've been saying it since Sami won it. It didn't really need it, especially long term. And I think putting it on Bron is probably the right thing to do. My only kind of thing that's holding me back a little bit, if you will, from committing to the prediction is that this could be a storyline that drags out a little bit longer, and he doesn't do it straight away. But I do think he's the kind of character where giving it to him straight away would make a little bit more sense. Like usually you kind of spread out the feud, you have 2 or 3 PLEs maybe, but for him to come in and just beat Sami first time he tries, I think will say a lot for the character. And judging by the way they pushed him in NXT and the way they pushed him on Raw lately, it's the kind of thing I feel they would book this character into. So I'm going to be nice, quick and early with it. I might regret this one, but I'm on the Bron Breakker hype train at the moment. So let's go with Bron Breakker winning the IC title. What are your thoughts, Lucas?
Yeah, same, to be fair. I think it may even be a bit petty, this, but I'm still just annoyed Sami beat Chad last month. And I just think that I don't want this reign of Sami's to become that reign where he just goes through people.
Like Seth. I don't want it to be a world heavyweight title thing with Seth again, where he keeps winning it.
And, where he's going to people who we want to see with the belt more than him. Sami built up a lot of goodwill. Obviously through the pandemic era and the Bloodline story, or that chapter of the Bloodline story. But it is one of those where it's just like, there's just more exciting options on the table. A more exciting option would have been last month with Chad Gable winning it. And the matches and the feuds that could have come out of that, and what we would have done and meant as well to Chad Gable.
Yeah,
they decided to do that. Now this month it feels like, look, you got someone coming in like Bron Breakker, who everyone is just saying he is the future of the company, and and I get that Sami Zayn is always going to be like a favourite, but I just feel like, this needs to be the time where the decision's made out of his way.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I could see a scenario where it does fall into that kind of constant loop of when's he getting beat, like it was with Seth Rollins. But I guess I feel this one is a little different, and maybe it was all that transitional thing to eventually get to someone like Bron Breakker. Anyway, going to get to some comments here. Friend of the show, of course, Matt knows that Lucas is a little further from home today. Lucas is out there in Germany. Whereabouts in Germany are you, Lucas?
I'm in Cologne.
Cologne.
So I'm actually interestingly nowhere near the football, which is kind of good.
Okay.
No, it's good for my travel. It's good for my travel plans anyway.
I guess, you keep it away. You're not, it's not too busy where you are. That's all right. Matt also says people wanted Cody as champ and merch, etc. Ain't doing great, so sometimes it's better to not listen and keep people tuning in hope that people will win. We'll get to a bit more Cody in detail later on, but what are your thoughts there on kind of I guess just not listening to what the fans want and just kind of diving into a bit. But I mean, it's a trick. It's a dangerous game. Sometimes it has worked out, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, we could argue that that's basically what Vince McMahon was doing for a number of years. You know, he would tune out to a lot of what the audience wanted, and he'd persevere. And you know, sometimes, don't get me wrong, there were moments that really worked because of that mindset. You know, because whenever you did get like an out there the win, so like a CM Punk when he won the World Championship, or did a cash in or whatever, like, or Jeff Hardy's title reigns, like it always felt like, oh damn, this is like a big kind of shock to the system. Do you know what I mean? You can even argue back in 2016, you know, like when you gave like Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles, Bray Wyatt following that, you know, all Jinder Mahal, you know, all people who, you know, you would have thought years ago would never have been the case. So I do think it's very important. I do see the importance of that, but I do think in this new era, when the fans are kind of turning off a bit faster, you know, and there is obviously not competition, but there's other wrestling out there, you know, that exists. I do think it is integral to try and maybe not to do that sometimes.
Keep us on their side a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, I think the big. Go on.
I would say, but this is also where I think the shorter title reigns could benefit this. You know,
but it kind of leads into what I was going to say anyway, actually, because I was going to say, well, Gable is what if we go on what the fans wanted. Fans wanted Gable at Mania, let alone a month ago when you really wanted it. Still, that was our kind of all right. Maybe this is why they've done it. Turns out it wasn't. But now I think we can all see that Braun makes sense, and maybe this transitional thing for Sammy is why they did it. But yeah, you touch on something interesting there about the kind of length of the reign, because Braun, he can't have a Gunther reign, right? That would be ridiculous. But he's kind of a similar character in the way he's been built and protected. So he kind of needs to have somewhat of a lengthy reign. So it will be interesting to see if Braun does win it, which I do think he's winning it, whether it's sooner or later, you know, next month, this month, whatever it may be, he's going to be getting an IC title. If not, it's because they're somehow going to shoot him straight to the top and he's going to get a world title. But I'd like to see him actually get the IC title. I think it'd be good for the title and it'd be good for him. So looks like we're both in agreement here. Looks like we both do think it will be a victory for Braun Breaker. As much as I haven't really been thrilled about it initially going on Sammy, there's been some good moments and some good matches with this title run as well. So although I did disagree with him actually taking Gable's place, even though that was storyline and I feel real life, hey, it's not been terrible. And again, it's never been about Sammy or anything like that. Fantastic performer. Just kind of wish he had a world title instead. But let's jump into our next match before we jump into the world titles. But let's talk about somebody that does hold another. Of course, that is Cody Rhodes. This time teaming up with Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, going against the new version of the Bloodline. So much so, there was even rumors apparently that they were going to change their name. I didn't see much more beyond the headline, but it didn't happen. And we can fantasy book forever, Lucas, about what's going to happen here with the return of Roman Reigns and things like that, which I think we will hold off on for just now. And we'll try and stick to Money in the Bank and this match itself, unless you do think something's going to pop up here. But we do have to mention the things that, of course, have led to this match. And we'd be kind of silly, really, not to mention the incredible performance from Paul Heyman, and I guess whether or not that's going to play a part in this as well. But I personally think it won't. It's a chance to get him off the TV and stay away from the action for a little bit, maybe. But then again, you know, we're filming this just before SmackDown. What, in 2 days, he might show up on SmackDown anyway. But for me, that was absolutely incredible. What are your thoughts before we jump into the match itself, as far as, you know, the way the Bloodline's been presented lately, and of course that link to Paul Heyman as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Paul Heyman's really been carrying this quite a lot. Obviously, the new members of the Bloodline that have come in and debuted, obviously, since WrestleMania. Obviously, we had Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and now Jacob Fatu. I must admit as well, like, there is something to be said about Jacob Fatu, like how good he was when he debuted. Like, when he had,
it was a fantastic debut.
Like, really, really solid. And, you know, interesting fact about Jacob Fatu, he is 32 years old and has 7 children. So I think it's safe to say the Bloodline will be kept alive for a number of days.
That's a good point.
Half of them to wrestle, and they've got trios, or a tag team. But yeah, I mean,
and if it all goes wrong, and then Heath Slater can revive a tag team with him specifically about I got kids, but
yeah, but yeah, no, I think that Heyman's done a fantastic job with this. The commitment to character when it comes to the character work he's been doing, particularly on the last segment that we saw him in. He's 58 years old, and he's and a non-wrestler.
Sliding off that table as he landed as well, like it just made you realize, whoa.
And it's testament to kind of everyone in that segment that it was able to go the way it went. And obviously there was lots of controversy last week over SmackDown because a lot of it was edited out, not just in that segment, but in the segment involving Nia Jax, as there were some fans who really didn't like that she was Queen of the Ring, I guess, and decided to show some hand gestures that Fox decided was not appropriate to be seen on television. And so it led to a lot of complaints about that. And similar in this segment as well, like after this segment, there was a lot of outages and the camera going to the announcers and all that kind of stuff, which, a bigger news item, as we know, next year, obviously SmackDown will return to USA Network in America, and it will obviously join the Netflix family over here in the United Kingdom alongside Raw and NXT. I believe NXT. I think it's definitely Raw and SmackDown, isn't it?
I think so.
One would assume with the network closing down, isn't it? So I guess.
Well, is it not just Raw going to Netflix?
In America, but in the UK, all WWE programming is
going
because the network's closed down.
Yeah.
So obviously it will all go to Netflix, but yeah, we'll obviously have to develop. That's a development story that we can maybe cover and talk about close to the time. As it's going to be weird now. There not being a network like over here because it's so.
It's a privilege that we've still got it when you have to use Peacock in the States, but at the same time, if we're honest, it ain't been what it was for a while. They don't update it as much as they used to. They don't make the same content anymore. Those incredible documentaries are few and far between, and the ones they do are partnered with A&E, and they're not on the network either. So it's it's not what it once was, but it will be strange to lose it.
It will be, and obviously, I guess maybe close to the time we can do some content about that. As obviously, I've got a lot to say about the network, but that's for another video. In terms of this story and what we're going on to, I think that it does seem to be, and we can. This is one where, as fans, we can just fancy put the hell out of, can't we? It does seem like we're going to some sort of Bloodline Civil War Part 2, I guess, and some sort of. There's a lot to unpack here, and there's so many different members, and there's talk about Hikalu coming, Hikalu, or I don't know how to pronounce the name, coming into the things, and obviously if Roman Reigns is going to return, obviously the Usos, and there's so much to unpack. But I think in terms of this, in terms of we've got a sort of 6-person tag match, they haven't announced the way who the Bloodline members are. Yeah,
what are your thoughts this moment in time as who's taken a step back? For me, there's 2 possible solutions. I think it's either Tangaloa or Solo Sikoa himself to be the kind of go on boys, do it for me sort of thing.
I think because I think they want to tease or do Cody versus Solo at SummerSlam. So I think it will make best sense if Solo sits out of this one.
Yeah, and Cody's like trying to get to him, be like, you should be in here, and
and then obviously they do that at SummerSlam. That would be the best sense. In terms of this, then, it's a very tricky one because didn't Randy and Kevin already lost to them, didn't they? Or did they win?
Well, like on SmackDown.
No, remember they had the tag match at Paris, didn't they? Against Tanga and Tama.
Did they? I've forgotten that already. If that's the case.
No, Tama and Solo, wasn't it? At Backlash.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Did they lose? They must have lost to them. Yeah, because that was when Tonga Loa debuted, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah, it was.
So essentially. So much about Tonga's in-ring debut. Yeah. They won the match already. Okay, so we've already had the Bloodline as a tag team defeat Randy and Kevin Owens.
With the age-old thing of we nearly didn't do it, but we got a new member. Because that's been a Bloodline trope for a long time. But I understand now we're building a new Bloodline. It's kind of how they're going to do it. But yeah.
So this is the thing now. Now they're doing the same thing they done last time, but 6-man tag. Because obviously Jacob Fatu is now debuting. Like, can you risk the Bloodline losing here, or do they just win again? It's interesting because obviously, well, in the Braun Breaker match, going back to that, he's obviously been presented as the villain, isn't he? He's a heel.
Yeah. But as always, I mean, with this PLE, you got so many factors with the ladder matches and the world titles that could be affected by the ladder matches as well. So even the kind of age-old thing of, maybe not too many heels and maybe not too many baby faces is hard to predict on a show like this as well.
Yeah, I guess we're in like a different era as well for it. It's tricky. Are they going to do the same thing again, and then that sets up Cody and Solo, or is a better story for this Bloodline to lose, it angers Solo Sikoa, you know, he then obviously goes, or goes essentially, well, I'll show you how it's done, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then he gets to Cody at SummerSlam. That probably makes more sense.
That's true, because SummerSlam's not far off actually, so there is potential for that.
Because the first thing's already happened. I guess if Tama or Tonga are pinned, then I guess Jacob Fatu still kind of, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
Could even be a DQ, because technically it's just a normal kind of tag match, which I think if it was DQ, that would also favour the baby faces. So yeah, I'll go with Team Cody to win this one, just on the hunch that just because it's been done already, the villains win.
Okay. So it's interesting because when I was watching the last kind of stuff with the Bloodline, the whole Paul Heyman segment, I was looking at them walking back up the ramp and thinking, and a bit where they were facing off against those guys on the ramp as well, thinking they can't lose this match. But yeah, not really thinking about the one they'd already won. So yeah, you make some good points there, and I guess it does depend on who's in the match as well, because Jacob Fatu could be the one that sits it out as well. But then talking about long term, if it does go to Cody and Solo at SummerSlam, then unless something big happens there, like a return from The Rock or Roman Reigns or something like that, then surely that will end in not Solo winning the title. Surely that would be crazy. Maybe it will, I don't know, but at this moment in time, it doesn't feel like they're doing that. So that would be yet another loss. But then they do have Bash in Berlin in between. Don't know how much they're going to be involved at PLE. So it's kind of hard to tell. But I'm going to stick to my original kind of thought, really, in that I think the Bloodline have just got to continue looking strong now. I think every time someone comes in, it kind of gives them more reason to make them look strong. Otherwise, that person potentially looks like a weak link, unless they're not involved in a match as well, and that could again be played into it. Just like you say, Solo being annoyed if he's not the one in it could be upset as well. But yeah, I'm just going to go for the kind of protection of the newer group that aren't still as fully established as the old version, and I'm going to say that the Bloodline are going to win this one.
Oh, fair enough.
All right, so what should we do with the kind of 2 Money in the Bank matches and the world title match? What kind of order do you reckon we should do it? And of course, we've got the women's one, we've got the men's one, and we've also got the men's world title, which, you know, is, I guess, if any's going to be cashed in on, it would be that one, because it's the only one currently being defended on the show. So with that in mind, what are your thoughts, mate? What order should we do this in?
I think, yeah, we talk about the men's Money in the Bank and then the World Championship kind of together / back to back, and then the women last, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that, and let's start with the men's Money in the Bank. Interesting looking back on this now, because we've got LA Knight, who was this time last year on absolute fire heading into Money in the Bank, where it really did feel like he was the one who was going to win it. Of course, Damian Priest won it. You mentioned earlier on how that's only just been kind of concluded, if you will, because he's won the title at WrestleMania, and that's still very much the storyline we're focusing on with him at the moment as well. But we did get to chat to LA Knight this time last year, when, of course, Money in the Bank PLE was in London. So if you haven't already, go and check out our content from last year's Money in the Bank, not just the interviews with the likes of Zelina Vega, as say LA Knight. Also got to have great conversations with Bailey and Pretty Deadly, for example. But we do have a lot of great content on this channel from, I guess, the festivities around the Money in the Bank here in London at the time as well. It does feel a shame to not be doing it. But let's let Toronto have this one, and let's go back to the match at hand. And again, whether or not LA Knight is going to be someone that is walking away with a briefcase this time, or would it be Chad Gable, who of course has been very much presented well lately, even if he hasn't ended up with a title like we hoped. You got Jey Uso, who's very over at the moment. Does feel like they could potentially pull the trigger there. Drew McIntyre, well, I'm sure we've got plenty to talk about with him in just a moment. Carmelo Hayes, who is another up-and-comer. And we've got Andrade as well. Now, Andrade, for me, is the first one I'm going to say is not going to win it. But then again, Damian Priest, I was very shocked this time last year anyway, even though I kind of got it in some ways. It's not who I expected. Going back to the field there, Carmelo kind of fits the bill in some ways for that kind of, person you want breaking through the mid-card, going to the top level, but it's still far too soon for me with that. As much as I like him, he's only just come up to the main roster, so I don't think he's going to the world title picture anytime soon, or at least even flirting with it, because yes, it could be in a year's time that he cashes in, but still he's got to be in and around it at the moment, which I don't see happening. LA Knight feels like I don't want to say missed the boat with him, because they're still doing good stuff with him, but surely Logan Paul is going to have something to say about this. I'd imagine Logan Paul is going to kind of interfere or something like that, maybe still do a crazy spot on the ladder, even though he's not in the match. So I'm just running through him really. Shorty G or Chad Gable, potentially Jey Uso in a different time frame. I do think the way they pushed him would make sense. He is in that exact position again, going to the next level. I could see it, but it just feels like the main event picture is too muddy, and so is the bloodline scenario that he might have to go back into as well. So I'm going to kind of put him out there. So really it leads me down to Drew and Chad Gable. Now, Chad Gable, I would like, because I really like his work, but Drew McIntyre, I think, is the quick fix. Now, is that a bad thing? Like, this storyline will be kind of either happening literally on that night or progressing within, you'd imagine, the next a month or two. It won't go much longer than that with Drew, I don't think. So it's kind of whether or not we do that. And then you always think about what's going to happen to the women's side of things. That plays into it as well. But if I have to say someone right now, I would say it is going to be Drew McIntyre, which kind of feels weird to say, because I do think, again, there are people in this match that do definitely fit the bill, but LA Knight's going off to face Logan surely at SummerSlam. Yes, he could have the briefcase when he does that, and he probably should have the briefcase and be in that position. But again, I said it was a bit of a muddy top tier for Gable. It's also a bit of a muddy top tier at the moment for LA Knight, because there's so much going on. Even if it ain't Drew, even if you've still got Seth and Priest, and if that does change, it will include Punk, and there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on the Cody side of things, and I don't see any of these guys going towards Cody. So yeah, for me, Drew McIntyre. I'll hold off on my world title thoughts just yet, and we'll see what you think first of all of the men's Money in the Bank.
See, I'm not a fan of a lot of this. Is the problem. I think they've really muddied the field with a lot of these people. And yeah, like you, I will rule out Andrade straight away. I think he's there to do the token flip powerbomb off the ladder spot. So I'll be good or take it wrong. As there is like a Money in the Bank checklist, or you like your drinks, don't you? I guess there should be a drinking game maybe for Money in the Bank. But yeah, I don't think it's Andrade. I also don't think it's Carmelo Hayes. Though I wouldn't be against that. And that could be. I do think I have a lot of problems actually with Money in the Bank as a whole nowadays, because the problem is you put on the main event guy, that person almost like doesn't need it, they're too established. But you put it on, to get the bigger reaction, like you want like the underdog out of nowhere to win, but it's like someone like McIntyre. Well, say something. We say this. He didn't seem to appear to be able to win a world championship match. Or at least keep it anyway afterwards. Someone like Drew McIntyre could just be in a main event, quite easily. Like, this should be almost similar to the Rumble in a way, where you have had underdog winners, people come out of nowhere. And the problem we had a few years back when they were giving the Rumble victories to Hall of Famers, or people who like Brock Lesnar won it again like a couple of years ago.
Multi-time champions.
It was a waste of the Rumble win.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we may have froze with Lucas just there. I'm going to... Oh, there we go. He's back. But can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So apologies, guys. Again, Lucas joining us from overseas in a hotel. So we got to cut him some slack with the Wi-Fi there. So appreciate it either way, man. So, but where were we? We're talking about it kind of being that break through the glass ceiling into the top tier, from the top side of the mid card into the kind of main title picture, right? And how we like it to be people like that. And I think the only one that really fits the bill and is ready for that, if we're talking like that, is going to be Gable, Jey Uso and LA Knight. You know, Drew is that person that's already had it, but he's the one storyline wise that I think makes the most sense. I'm with you. I'm not usually a fan of someone not needing it, if you will, but because of it, I feel like his story could kind of, well, there's a few interesting things you could do with it. So are you swayed to the kind of traditional thing of trying to make it that person that's breaking into the next tier, or do you think it is going to go onto
well, the thing is, surely with Drew if Drew wins it, does then Punk come out the next night then, and then they get to it that way, or does Punk cost Drew this as well?
Yeah, there's a scenario where Punk costs Drew this, but there's also a scenario where Drew does it, tries to cash in on the main event, and Punk costs him there, which I would really, really be against if he actually lost the briefcase and they killed the briefcase in one night. I'd be very disappointed with that. I mean, they'd have to make the women's one last longer. I mean, it's potential. We haven't even got into that field just yet, but there's a lot of scenarios here. And it, you know, the Clash thing is, as much as, again, we said when we did our instant reaction to that, if you haven't already seen it, check out exactly what we thought at that moment with Drew and Punk. We're at risk of doing the same thing and overdoing it here with Punk. You know, like, I'm a big Punk fan. I'm enjoying this feud and I love the way it's executed. But I still thought it was a bit ridiculous that Punk did that, and it was a bit of a risky move in Glasgow and all that kind of stuff. So I think this could be one too far. Like, they don't need, it keeps costing him. It can't keep happening. It happened at Mania, happened at Clash. It can't happen with the Money in the Bank again. So that is one kind of spanner in the works, though, for my kind of, I guess, fantasy booking for Drew. So it'd be tough to kind of see the WWE not being tempted by that. And what about the up-and-comers, though? Any of those that you think is likely? You know, I say up-and-comers, you know, this guy's been around for a while, but the Yeet Man himself, Shorty G and LA Knight, what do you reckon? Any of those looking like?
So difficult, because Jey Uso is obviously integral to any sort of bloodline thing going forward, which, yes, the bloodline are feuding with Cody Rhodes, which kind of helps, but I think it'd be a bit of a stretch, particularly because they've done so much, taking a lot of effort to make sure to draft Jey Uso separately from Cody Rhodes, the whole trade thing that they worked out and all that. It seems to be very deliberate, which, again, it could then lead into this, or like, what, deliberate for a reason, because you know, Jey Uso's going to have this moment and then, you know, cash in on him. I think the Drew one for me is very muddy, because you could end up creating a really good moment, but you could also end up creating a disaster. Like, you touched upon one that could happen where, yes, like Drew wins, goes for a same night cash in, and Punk costs him. And then you got a situation where, again, the briefcase is now being kind of wasted. As, look, controversial it may be, Triple H did book, in my opinion, the worst Money in the Bank cash in of all time with Austin Theory. Like, absolute shambles of that.
Was that under Triple H's era, was it?
It was, yeah. It was.
Oh, my gosh. Well, maybe I've been a bit more forgiving than I realised.
Yeah, it was. It was during that period after Vince McMahon had retired the first time.
It was, yeah, it was, because that was the whole rumor, weren't it? That he was Vince's guy, and therefore, wow.
So yeah, you know, that was an absolute mess. That just hurts me just thinking about it. But anyway, and same night cash-ins have been so overdone, haven't they? So overdone. And so I'm actually now going to dismiss Drew. So then I'm
okay.
For me, based on between Jey Uso and LA Knight. There's a bit of Carmelo Hayes in there as well. It might be because of the NXT fan of me is thinking, you know what, that could be quite a good thing. Because Carmelo Hayes is really underrated, but I don't think he's gelled as well on the main roster as he could have been, which I think maybe rules him out as well. So now I'm between Jey and LA Knight. Now, LA Knight, believe it or not, I'm actually not a fan of LA Knight at all. I just think he's okay. But he is immensely over. And Then Jey Uso was first to announce himself for the match. Does that mean that? Does that mean anything?
Yeah, we did so dive into that a little bit, didn't we, with the poster a little while ago? And we both said it meant nothing at the time.
Yeah. But yeah, the poster, and then he did that thing where he announced himself before he even qualified, and then he qualified like a few weeks later. So is it just maybe a given that he's winning it? You know what? Because I don't see. I think the ship has sailed LA Knight. I really think it has. I think he got his reward last year when he got the Saudi Arabia title defense. You know, he got well compensated for. Let's be real, it's a Saudi match. They haven't booked him as that guy.
No.
For a lot.
I think it's the Logan thing should have happened a while ago. You know, and at this stage we could have been ready for it, but he got. Yeah, it should have been him and Logan at Mania, and then at this stage we should be looking at him to go into the next, you know, kind of stratosphere, you know, which because we're in the Logan mix at the moment. I mean, yeah, he could hold the briefcase and go on, you know, again, you could be 9 months from now, and you're right, maybe talking about Jey Uso as well. Maybe Jey Uso could still stay in the Bloodline storyline, which might not kick off properly until another 6 months time, or Survivor Series or something like that. He could be holding on to the briefcase. Doesn't have to be world champion, because that was the issue for me, is that if he's world champion, then you're taking a title away from a storyline. You know, they should be separate things. But if he's got the briefcase, there's no one challenging him for it. So I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards Jey Uso a little bit myself there. Yeah.
I'm gonna look in Jey Uso. I think
okay.
I think, yeah, like if LA Knight had faced Logan already and hadn't got a feud going on, like I think Jey Uso is kind of in that good position where obviously he recently had his title match, didn't he, a few months ago, and it did seem like that kind of was closed, but it could be reopened. He's also an instant pop as well, which is, you know,
be a great moment.
Because again, what we must touch upon here, I guess, I mean, we'll talk about it potentially, we do a build up or whatever. Because of time, but I think is that at the time of booking the Money in the Bank winner, you know, we don't know, do they have the cash in mind? Like, and how, if they do, like, how close is it? Like, do they know, for example, okay, we're going to have this person win and then cash in, even if it is like 6 months, you know, 9 months, even like a year, let's say WrestleMania next year, do they have that in mind already? Or do they just go, oh, we'll have this person with the briefcase,
and we'll figure it out.
And we'll figure it out, like, as and when kind of thing.
Yeah, it does feel like both of those scenarios have happened, for sure.
Exactly.
But
and do they change from one to the other? Like, do they maybe have like a handful of ideas, and then obviously see what fits, you know? And I think there is a lot of. It's very easy to panic book a Money in the Bank as well, isn't it? Because it is like they know it's a guaranteed pop. It's a guaranteed kind of easy way out of situation. Like if you've got, you know, injuries, or you've got a champion which isn't working for you.
Yeah, it's a good backup plan. Yeah,
you know, it's a good one to do, and like, you know, and again, it did seem like, you know, it's one that they can really flirt with. Now, obviously, we're talking into them trying to negotiate with stadiums, you know, international stadiums. It's one of those where they, you know, it's an instant thing of like, well, we can give you a title match, we can give you a title change, you know, a big world championship title change.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I'm gonna go Jey Uso. I think there's actually a lot that he could actually do on both sides of the fence, and I believe it will be something fresh. And yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into it because he's on the poster and he's the first to announce and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes that's just how it is. Like the red herring isn't red.
That's it. I do feel like there's a potential other route for Jey Uso where he maybe becomes Braun Breaker's challenger, and that's because I think Jey deserves a reward. I think we can't go back to him being in the Usos without him holding a title. I think he needs something, and I do think an IC title would make sense. It looked like he might have got that a few months ago as well. It was another title match they screwed out of by Jimmy, weren't it? So I think him beating Braun would be a good thing. But yeah, like as long as Braun gets a decent run with it as well, and I mean decent, not 7 years or anything like that, just a few months. But yeah, there we are with the men's Money in the Bank. Let's move straight into the world title then, just because there is potential for a kind of link up between the two. It'd be interesting to see how on the night the order of things. If this is the first match, then everybody's predictions and picks for cash-ins are out the window already. But let's imagine that's not the case. I do have a bit of a feeling that maybe the men's would open and this would be in the middle of the show or something like that, or who knows. But anyway, let's get into it. We've got Seth Rollins for the first time in about 4 years being in the world title match. Okay, not really. He's constantly in this title match, but let's let that one go, Scott. He's back already to go up against Damian Priest. And yes, he is a former champ. And yes, rematch clause, even though that's not really a thing anymore, but whatever. I just really hope he's not getting the title back, because we're back exactly where we were every month. As much as I love Seth, as much as I understood that he needed to elevate this title and make it mean something, he just kept onto it a little bit too long, in my opinion. There were a few good challenges and moments that I think that were passed up on that maybe shouldn't have been. But Damian Priest has got it now. Am I saying that it's because I want to see Damian Priest with a title for another 6 months as well? No, but there is something interesting going on with the Judgment Day and Finn Balor. There's something going on under the surface, potentially in and out with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk as well. So now that feud itself, Drew and Punk, of course, doesn't directly at the moment on the surface kind of affect this match, but it has been, as I say, in and out with both of these guys, to be fair. Does it need the world title? No. I could see a scenario where that match is at SummerSlam. It doesn't have anything. It's just a blood feud, and I'd kind of be all right with that as well. But it depends how they play that. If Punk's going to screw McIntyre in the Money in the Bank match, or even a potential cash-in here as well, as we've already touched on. So with that in mind, let's kind of knuckle down. And I'm going to say, look, just ultimately between the match itself, unless it's officially made a triple threat, I can't see Damian Priest losing this one here. So I think Damian Priest will win. Now, whether or not he's cashed on in after it, I'm still in two minds about. So I'm not going to bonus point it or anything like that. Because if I bonus point it, then I'm potentially already risking going with Drew with the winning the briefcase in the first place. So I'd look really silly if I say he's going to cash in and don't even have the briefcase. So I'm going to hold back on that one. And I'm just going to say, look, simply, I don't think Seth should be getting the title back. I think it will be damage into Damian Priest, and I think it will be unnecessary for Seth and for the title. So surely Damian Priest is going to hold on to this. Now, where he goes after it, I don't know. Again, maybe something with a Finn Balor situation on Judgment Day falling apart, or maybe it is Drew McIntyre cash in after all. But for me, it just doesn't make sense to put it on Seth at this moment in time. So I'm going to go in with Damian Priest retaining, which would be a good look for him, by the way. He had a good match, a fantastic match when we look back at Clash. You know, the potential injury could have seriously faced there as well, and the way he worked around that foot issue on the ropes was incredible. And while I do think he got a lot of praise then, and storyline wise, I think it'd be nice for him to cement it a little bit more on this one. So yeah, Damian Priest for me.
Right, interesting. As I just think the complete opposite.
Oh, okay.
And the reason being is because who is challenging for the belt at SummerSlam? It is Gunther.
Oh no, I forgot about that.
And Gunther is a villain. This is one of those. But yeah, for me, they ruined their match in a way. But it does seem that the default thing to do would be, I'm not usually a fan of this either, by the way, is when the old champion kind of comes back and gets his title shot. But I do believe, obviously, that Seth Rollins potentially we are going to start seeing a bit less of, in ring. I think they're going to save him for big events and big matches and stuff. And yeah, I just think I think even without storyline, I just think out of those two matches, Gunther versus Seth or Gunther versus Damian Priest, there's one that just stands up above the rest.
100%. Yeah.
It could also be a triple threat, I guess, that they really wanted to include Damian Priest for a bit, but I do think they might steer Damian Priest back into Judgment Day, the in feud within that, I guess, the Finn Balor stuff, potentially even mix tag it potentially. Obviously with Finn, and you got a lot going on there with Liv and Finn and Dom and Rhea maybe coming back, and but apparently the rumor is that Rhea Ripley has been informed that she is ready to appear by SummerSlam.
Right.
Whether that means in a match or whether it means on television, you have to imagine. she got injured. She obviously had surgery now. She maybe can't wrestle, but just to have her presence, I think, could actually really help this storyline a lot. On TV and build up to obviously when they do obviously have her versus Liv. But then again, we just said don't like when the old champion comes back and challenges again. But I guess it's just the easy story to go to.
A bit different with her though, because she was injured, and in real life as well. So
I mean, so was Seth though. To be fair, not obviously by Damian Priest, but obviously went in with an injury, and so I guess it's one where they'd feel it makes sense. I just think that every single stream we've done with this since he won, I've just always sadly just felt that Damian Priest isn't World Heavyweight Championship material. And good match aside, I still just think there's not a lot there for him. And then I'd question what they'd do at SummerSlam involving this belt if they have to do Gunther versus Damian Priest. And the only other option really then is Jey Uso, who would my pick for the briefing winner, him cashing in, and then they do Jey Uso versus Gunther, which would be interesting because at one point it felt like a direction they were going to go in towards Mania before ultimately going with the wrong choice, Sami Zayn, to do so. So there's quite a lot there where I'm just like, I don't see Damian Priest winning. I don't see what benefit Damian Priest winning and all there being no cash in to bring the belt back to a babyface afterwards. I'm not the bones want the cash in either, but again, I could be sitting like a numpty if Seth just wins and there's no cash in, and then obviously the match is going to be Seth and Gunther. But Seth and Gunther is the best matchup they could do, in my opinion, at SummerSlam, outside of a multi-person, I guess.
It will be annoying though if they did do a multi-person thing, because it'd be just like the Rumble where you earn the spot and then all of a sudden, it's annoying.
I don't think they'd risk it again. I think the only one realistic that would make sense is if there was a cash in. But I'd like to think even then they would just do the rematch clause on Raw. They'd get that match on television. And then it is obviously winner faces Gunther, like the final kind of stage, winner faces Gunther. So even that I don't like either. So because the main event creates a lot of situations where I'm not liking it, because for me, I just think the cash in should be the cash in, and actually that's the big moment. And I just think when you then default it of like, oh well, the old champion is now going to challenge the briefcase, the cash in person, I think it's a bit lazy. And especially when they did the ultimate no-no a few years ago, when obviously Nikki Cross, Nikki AHS won, and she ended up losing the title back to Charlotte straight away. I mean, I guess that was done to show that, okay, well, you can beat me in a cash-in, but only that, you can't actually beat me in a match. But it just kind of buries the concept a little bit of like, well, this is meant to be a big deal.
I guess they can't, formula can't always be the same, but then you're risky of it being boring. Now, it is all the same, or that you do have these kind of Nikki ones and Austin Theories and even your Damian Sandow's as well, where, you're kind of walking along a bit of a tightrope. I think your point is very valid, the Gunther thing. The only thing that makes me think that maybe I've kind of not gone as early as I thought when you first revealed it is that we've still got Bash and Berlin, and Gunther's going to have to do something there anyway, and this title will maybe be on the line. I mean, it might not. The WWE title's not on the line this time, and we've had that before where it's been one and not the other, so maybe this title isn't on the line, but there is a scenario where Seth wins it next month, and they have a stand down where Gunther comes out at the end of the one in Berlin and faces off against Seth to say, look, SummerSlam is coming, and the fans are going mad as it kind of fades to black, sort of thing.
No, Bash got into after SummerSlam, Scott.
Oh, is it really? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so he'll go to Berlin as champion if he wins the Bash, but at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Well, it is. I'm going to it.
Gosh.
SummerSlam's the start of August, isn't it, this year? And then Bash, it's a
See, I kept it's because it wasn't announced for ages, was it? And I kept thinking,
well, because it seems that
it seems a bit too obvious then.
Now, don't they? Like they announced SummerSlam 2026, but they announced SummerSlam 2025.
Yeah, true.
And we still haven't had an announcement about Survivor Series this year.
Yeah.
It's really
okay. So that will be the next PLE then, SummerSlam, Bash.
Yeah, SummerSlam then Bash. Yeah.
SummerSlam then Bash.
Yeah.
That feels weird though. Money in the Bank into SummerSlam.
Yeah, it was like that last year.
Because Money in the Bank's a little later now. I don't know.
Yeah, it used to be like June.
Was it really?
July.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why it's kind of squeezed a little bit closer. Fair enough. Maybe you're right then. Maybe that is what they're going to do. I mean, but then even then, do you lose? Does he lose at SummerSlam and then win it in Berlin? But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, you could be right there. It could be Seth Rollins taking the title off of Damian to have the kind of, I guess, more suited storyline match against Gunther. Now that that's all out of the way and I've jumped the gun there, I'm going to ask you to go first on the next one, Lucas. Let's talk about the other Money in the Bank match. Of course, this is the women's Money in the Bank. We've got last year's winner in this one, Iyo Sky, of course. We also have Chelsea Green, Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Zoey Stark. Now, this one does kind of line up with what we say about the traditional thing of someone breaking into that next part of the card. Io's already been there, Naomi's already been there as well, but then there are still probably even more so in this one, 4 people at least that could be breaking into that next level. So this will be an interesting one to hear your thoughts on, Lucas. So who are you going with here?
So yes, I don't think they're going to do a back-to-back winner for this, so I'm going to eliminate Iyo Sky straight away. I think of a player that she is. I think I'll eliminate her straight away. I think also they're doing a kind of storyline with Damage Control still flirting with splitting / having to change or whatever it's going to be, and I don't know whether that's like maybe they're just trying to put themselves into this, maybe. Are they going to shake things up? I don't know how. I personally would just say, look, just get rid of it. I guess the only thing it has going for it, I guess, is that they have got an established tag team match as part of it, and obviously the women's tag division, which again is not featured in a way as well. That we could argue the women aren't really featured on this show, sadly.
True.
The one match from this pay-per-view at the moment.
Yeah.
Following 50-50 booking, even in Saudi. Saudi.
True.
But yeah, we only got the one women's match. So yeah, now Zoey Stark, as we mentioned several times before, last year she was such a hot ticket, it felt like, and it just petered off, one thing after the other, after the other. And she's phenomenally talented. I mean, and obviously, Shayna Baszler and Jade Cargill went back and forth after Clash last month about the springboards and the rope situation and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to obviously put Jade Cargill down with this, but I would just say, look, someone like Zoey Stark was able to, effortlessly kind of negotiate that match, and the stuff that she can do, which is really impressive. I do feel that she should, in this match, to take the big moves and big stuff, do a big spot or something. So I don't think she will win. I also don't think, and just pray to God that Naomi does not win. I think we all have like this. Naomi's mine, just absolutely, just not a fan. It's nothing that she's done. I guess it's just,
just not for you. I like her, but I just don't think this is a spot for her.
Yeah, I think it's just I remember when she was on NXT and she got called the Black Kofi, and it just really annoyed me. The female Kofi, sorry.
It's more confusing.
the female Kofi Kingston, I don't know. She's everything about her is just not for me, and I don't think it'll be her. Now, then I'm left with the 3 that are on the right hand side of this graphic. I love Lyra Valkyria with every part of my body, and I wish that she had not had such a bump. Well, it's been hit and miss. I guess she's up. She had a great showing, obviously, in Queen of the Ring. It does feel like there is some good stuff in the pipeline for her, but I think this is the difference between NXT and the main roster. Though obviously she was obviously a big fish in a small well, it's weird because NXT has lots of women, but she was like at the top of her game in NXT. Whereas obviously on the main roster, there's a whole other level that kind of unlocks. And I do think someone like Lyra she needs to have a feud with one of the big names, like one of the big, obviously on the main roster as well, So I don't know who that can be at the moment. So I would actually roll her out for that. So now we're down to Chelsea and Tiffany Stratton. Now, I think because they're both villains, so I guess whichever way I go, it helps. But I do think, even though it doesn't always work out like this, I do think if they have a babyface win one, then they have a villain win the other. But then I guess with there being different titles and, all that stuff, and I guess you could turn while having the briefcase as well, couldn't you? Or even with the cash-in, as CM Punk did, obviously, several years ago. Now, of the two, I think that one of them is more ready and more suited to do this at this point of their career. I think that person at the moment, as much as I love the other person, is Tiffany Stratton. So I think that Tiffy time will be the favourite. Yeah, I'll go with Tiffany Stratton. It seems very open though, this match. Very open. And because I guess this one at present, obviously, like I said, guys, if you are watching it on demand, we are recording this before SmackDown has gone out. We don't know if they decide to add another women's match or not, or even an appearance by one of the women's champions on the show. But it does feel like with this year, it does feel like a lot of the men's stuff would be more imminent with the cash-in, if not same night. I do think by SummerSlam or Bash at the Berlin, I think we would see that kind of come to. Another thing we could have touched on it before is someone could win and then cash in on Gunther down the line, which would also be a big moment. Gunther get cashed in on his hometown.
That's some Vince McMahon booking right there.
But yeah, like I think ultimately, the women's one's very open. I think this will be one more long term. As obviously you have to imagine, with Rhea Ripley, set to come back into the fold, Charlotte Flair as well. There's a lot of kind of stuff for the women kind of coming up. And I guess for me, I always see it when that kind of stuff happens, they can just reset and rebuild the division up into that crescendo of a cash-in further down the line. So I would be saying, I do think Tiffany's been ready for a long time anyway, but I do think they can now use this time to help really get her over and get her established, while obviously maintaining the strong booking of the rest of the division. Get the divisions back to where they kind of need to be, I think. So I'd say Tiffany Stratton for me.
I pretty much agree with nearly everything you said there, apart from, I do enjoy Naomi's work a little bit more, it seems. But other than that, like as I say, I don't think it's her time. It doesn't seem like we're going to do a double one with Iyo. Zoey Stark, I could have seen it another time. Lyra, I was very tempted to go with, but she, of course, like you say, she had the Queen of the Ring, and it's like, why didn't they give it to her then? Is it because they were going to give her this instead? And they've had a few times where it looked like they were definitely pushing for her for a reason. So I wouldn't be majorly surprised if she did do it, but she's not my pick either. Chelsea Green, I think, would be a fantastic moment, but it'd be a moment in the sense of the Awesome Truth one a little while ago. So yeah, for me, that's not the way to go long term. And I think because we don't know what's going on with the men's, it could be literally cashed in on that night or something like that. I think this one needs to be a little bit more long term. So the one I'm going to go with as well is going to be Tiffany Stratton. Like you, I think she's been fantastic since she's been on the main roster, but also, of course, all the work in NXT. And of course, she has come up at somewhat a similar time and role as Carmelo. Carmelo was basically her in NXT, like he was the main guy, she was the main girl. I mean, you have Bron Breakker as well in the main men's division, but I would have said those were the main two most of the times, and talked about going up. The difference is the women's division is a little bit smaller in the main roster, and I feel like whereas Carmelo, as you say earlier, hasn't really found his feet, although he's been good. Tiffany's been pushed straight to the top, and basically, I could see her, as you have already said, having a briefcase for a long time and getting ready for it. Now, it seems like she was probably going to win the Queen of the Ring or something like that a little while ago, and there was all these rumors about this thing that she's reposted and all this kind of stuff. And then rumors of no backstage heat and yada, yada, yada. That's another conversation for another day. But essentially, it did feel like they did step back a little bit from her. And I'm not sure if that will play a part. I think up until that point, I would have been, even at that point, saying, she'll either win Queen or she'll be winning Money in the Bank. So maybe they're kind of just stepping back in. But then at the same time, if there are concerns of, just mistakes or anything like that, then giving her that for a whole year and then going, how do we get off of her? Because although, as you said, the briefcase can be a good thing to kind of fix a problem with a world title, it's also a problem that's hard to fix without annoying a few fans, unless you do the straight up Mr. Kennedy loses it and puts it on the line kind of stuff, It's a risky move. But again, this is just going off of just hearsay and whatever, so I can't really judge it on that, to be fair. I'm going to go with the talent I've seen on screen and the way they've continued to push her, even if there was a little bit of step back around the, time of a certain social media post. I just think that she looks like they want her to be the future, and therefore she is going to be the future. So I think it makes most sense. And yeah, I think, again, incredible performer and everything about it, like, having a pink glittery briefcase, you can see that, right? So although I can also see Chelsea Green with a briefcase and that using it as a fun prop as well, kind of, I guess, more in the kind of Carmella type, Money in the Bank winner, but even still slightly different. But yeah, ultimately, I think Tiffany makes the most sense out of that field. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if there was, Zoey Stark suddenly, that original push she had behind her coming back, or Lyra as well, getting a bit of a shine, or the big moment of Chelsea Green. The other two on the left are the ones that I think are least likely, but that's because they've been there. They've either been there and done it, or they've been there for a while and they don't need it. So yeah, Tiffy time for me as well.
Yeah, I'm with you with this whole accessorizing the briefcase, and I know, some fans might not like this or whatever, but they let's not forget that they sold boom boxes, didn't they, when Brock won? And yeah, I think it's a cool thing to do. Like, obviously they have to understand this. Fans have to understand. Sorry, they're obviously trying to get every audience, aren't they? That's the thing now. They're not ones that audience now they want, but obviously a lot of the demos go on about this 18 to 49 over in America, but no, we know what that means over here. But I think overall, they see it as any sector of the fan base they can get watching, the better, surely. Yeah. And obviously, if they can get, these, they can get more girls into watching the product, it's only be good for the girls in the business as well. So it makes sense. I think, I'm with you on some of this stuff. Obviously, I'm very torn with the Chelsea stuff though, because obviously, they have booked just the moment sometimes as well, haven't they? Like Nikki ASS, that was, again, not a Vince's decision, but that was very much, Vince liked the gimmick and liked what he saw, and it was very last minute, and he decided to put the briefcase on her and give her the cash in. Again, don't know the exact reasons, but one would assume it because he liked the gimmick. And maybe the fact that she'd done it herself and the thing, and it gave her a moment. And so it's a case of sometimes it is just, I think the problem with the Money in the Bank, I guess, is that obviously we were treated for a number of years to some very, very high caliber cash-ins. Yeah. And then as the briefcase has evolved, for both the men and the women, we've just seen a few poor attempts. We must stress that this is long going back. I mean, remember Damien Sandow, Baron Corbin, even the whole James Ellsworth, Carmella, initial kind of situation they created for themselves of that. There's been like a lot of those. So I guess sometimes, but I guess it's understanding, like sometimes the cash in will be this amazing moment that feels so deserved and so like, it's on such a big scale, like Seth Rollins, like Dolph Ziggler, like Edge, both times really, actually with Edge. But sometimes it will be that the story is they just want the person who came with a superhero gimmick to get a win. And very quick with that as well. Otis was a similar one. Obviously, we famously went back and forth about that a few years ago on the main Rebellious Noise channel as well. But for me, Tiffany fits the mold. For I think what most of us like for the Money in the Bank to be. And you talk about a cash in.
whether it is, 6 months time or 9 or a year from now, or, WrestleMania, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, whenever it is, a Monday Night Raw, Raw after Mania, Tiffany's music hitting is going to be, as long as things continue the way they have on screen, is going to be that moment, and it's usually a heel. It usually is a heel breaking into the top tier, and Dolph Ziggler and all that kind of thing. So I think she fits that mold as well. So there are just so many reasons to kind of go with Tiffy, but again, I wouldn't be surprised with some of the others either. And as always, it always depends on what's going on with these titles that they're going to go after. As you say, whether it's a long-term thing, a short-term thing, the men's title match as well, and whether or not that's affected by a short briefcase run or a kind of failed cash in or something like that. So lots to be excited about. It's going to be a big show this Saturday night, of course, coming to you from Toronto. I've been Scott, coming from merry old England. He's been Lucas, coming from Germany, and back in Germany, as you heard, very soon as well. You what?
Yeah, international now, aren't we? Rebellious Noise.
Internet, yeah. Look at this, superstars. Back in Germany very soon as well for the Bash in Berlin show as well. So stick with us on this channel, because we're trying to cover as much as we can here, as far as PLEs go, at least, and a few special podcasts in between as well. If you haven't already, go and listen to our thoughts back on that incredible debut for the Wyatt Six, and kind of where it's gone since then will be interesting to jump into soon. So stick with us on this channel. I'm sure we'll be talking about all the kind of happenings with that stable going forward, because there's a big chance that they do something on this show as well, especially with Gable being in the Money in the Bank match. It seems that he's the one that they're definitely targeting at the moment. And they flirted with the Jey Uso stuff as well. He's kind of been involved with it as well. So there is a possibility that they do make an appearance in the Money Back, which would be quite a spectacle in itself. So, really looking forward to seeing what they get. That want to give us this Saturday night. We will try our best to cover the show as best as we can as well. We're not too sure how things are going to work this weekend, to be fair, as far as scheduling goes, but we will try our best to cover it either way. And either way, would appreciate if you like this video, shared it with your friends, and subscribed to the channel. It all really does help. We're constantly growing, and we're constantly putting out new content as far as kind of previews and predictions, as we mentioned, but again, interviews from over the years with the likes of Santos Escobar and Finn Balor, to name a few as well. So I've been Scott. This one's been Lucas. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. We will see you very, very soon. Once again, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out more of our content. Thank you.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.